What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and Resident Evil 4 Remake is finally here. It seems just like yesterday it was June of 2022, and we got the full reveal from the Capcom event, and now it's in our hands, as many RE fans have been diving into this thing since its release. My whole world has been Resident Evil 4 Remake since I got my hands on it, and thank you, the community, for waiting for this review. And I did not get an early copy weeks before release, but I was finally able to play it 3 times on stream and 3 more times off stream to really get immersed and let this game take me along for the ride. I wanted to let everything sink in with each playthrough, while finding more things and enjoying the aspects of the game as I played through it each time. This review will be spoiler free, but I won't be holding back on my feelings here in this video. I also do a podcast after the video reviews, typically, and it goes further in depth with the discussion of the game, spoilers and theories, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that, and that will be another episode of the LTRE Podcast coming up soon. But let's get right in to this review of Resident Evil 4.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
I remember getting the original Resident Evil 4 on the Nintendo GameCube back in the cold January of 2005. Probably one of my favorite eras in gaming was PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox. Just simpler times. And Resident Evil 4 came out of nowhere for me personally because I knew of the release happening, but I didn't know the date of release at that point. But I was keeping up in the magazines that wouldn't stop raving about it. It was a big change, and even back in the day when I popped in the disc for the first time, I was taken back by the change and the different camera angle perspective. All the changes ended up working out, and I got hooked on the original Resident Evil 4, and the addiction sunk in. And that year of release, I played it so much. I mean, that summer was all RE4 all the time, and it was the first game since the original trilogy that had me that hooked. The characters that we loved returned, new and improved mechanics at the time, New Game Plus replay with just so much unlockables and replay value. There was a nice charm and feeling in the game with Resident Evil 4 that hit in a big way, and it showed in the gaming industry. Now in 2023, the franchise is 27 years old, and they are now remaking the game that inspired them to go back and do Resident Evil 2 and 3 in that similar style. And they took those 2 remakes as them figuring out the system and how they can redefine it for old players and new ones getting into the series. Especially with the success of the recent remakes and Resident Evil 7 and 8 combined, there's going to be a lot of people that are checking out the Resident Evil 4 story for the first time. Is this just as good, if not better, than the original Resident Evil 4? The story picks up after the destruction of Raccoon City in the events of Resident Evil 3. This takes place in the fall of 2004 and follows Leon S. Kennedy. Leon was forced into joining the government agency after the events of Raccoon City, and with the years that have gone by, he's only gotten more experienced and trained with what he's had to deal with. The theme of change is a constant one in this game, and it's something that I like how they explored it with each character individually. If you went through Raccoon City like these characters, would you change? And how would you handle the aftermath? Leon is a lot more trained and ready to move in this game, with kicks, suplex moves, various parry knife moves to do the trick. Leon is up against finding the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, who was kidnapped and brought to Spain. The Las Plagas and Los Illuminados is what Leon faces in this game, which makes the Ganados and other enemy types in this game a pretty big threat that expands outside the zombies and stalker-type enemies in the past few remakes. The threat feels big in this game, and Lord Sadler, who is in charge of the cult ahead, is written even better here, as he holds more of a threat to Leon and Ashley throughout the game. So let's break down the gameplay of the remake. This is one of my favorite parts right next to the story that's presented here in the remake, and of course, the gameplay runs as smooth as it's ever felt in the current RE engine with the recent Resident Evil titles. Now, I know some people had issues with the different aiming settings, as shown in the live chat when I streamed the game. Different settings seem to work for different people, whether on Xbox or PlayStation. There was also an update on April 7th along with the Mercenaries mode that fixed the aiming issues that people had on Xbox. They also had to fix flashing lights that were randomly appearing on the PS5 version with certain settings, and blurry visuals that the PS5 version did suffer from. I didn't have a big issue on the demo, but in the main game I just adjusted my aim acceleration on the Xbox, and I was good to go before the update when most of this stuff was being recorded. Now, as far as the aiming, I do think it feels good, and I think the guns feel punchy and responsive. The brand new knife mechanic for the gameplay plays a huge role in the combat, especially on the harder modes. But some players might just ignore these little knife features and parries, but it may make things a bit more difficult for Leon, and he will definitely take more damage in the process. I like the fact that the knife is something that needs to be repaired and has stats that you can work towards and upgrade, and make sure that it lasts longer for those nice stealth kills and parry counters you can pull off. The stealth kills are also a nice addition to the combat, where crouching can help you invade a section and begin a smooth execution on the area, so when you break the stealth, it's a lot more easier. It just helps that they made the melee attacks from Leon so well done, and it just feels impactful when you land those classic roundhouse kicks. Leon's running in this game does take some getting used to, as he does not run as fast in this remake as in the original, even with the added charm that you can throw on the attaché case. They had to make Leon move a bit differently with the weapons and combat style he takes on in this game, so I get the switch up between Resident Evil 2 Remake and this remake. And of course we have to bring up the Merchant, who plays a big role in the overall gameplay. He returns as expected and has a bunch of weapons from the original, with new ones peppered in there. The unlockable guns are almost all here, but between the original lineup, deluxe weapons, and the newly added weapons are all good variety, and they offered various upgrades from the Merchant. The trading system with the spinels was also a great touch, which makes you trade for treasures, treasure maps, and even weapon attachments. All the spinels can be rewarded from various side missions that the Merchant scatters around the 3 sections of the game. Some of them are as simple as finding a gold egg, or even hunting a certain type of fish. The medallions also make a return, but this time they appear in several areas throughout the game. And Leon can also hunt rats for some pest control for the Merchant. Sometimes the side missions make you fight enemies that act like mini-bosses, but the reward will be much higher in return. All of the side missions were great additions, and of course it made it really fun to go back and see what I missed on the map. There were multiple treasures and areas you can circle back to, whether you're by yourself or you end up with Ashley to get you on the other side of a door. The game feels very fun to explore, and it is very fun to clear all the maps to get every little treasure and explore every room, with no guides and just the help of your treasure map. Combining different pieces of treasures together is done a lot better this time around, with different color combinations you can match up that changes the overall resale value. I also really enjoyed the interaction between Leon and the Merchant. He has more of a realistic dialogue with Leon, and also sometimes has sales and special offers for a limited time just to sell you on it. There's also resources and gunpowder that you can find and sometimes get from the Merchant that allows you to craft ammo and health just like in past Resident Evil titles. Let's not forget a whole different layer that is in this remake, and that brings on the charms and the different attaché cases that can be selected for Leon from the typewriter. The typewriter also is used for storage, so you can store weapons that you are giving a rest. The target practice is reworked in this game, and it's fantastic. Instead of the bottle caps, Leon can earn coins from high ranks at the shooting range for some silver or gold coins. They can be used to vend charms from all different stats, and they can benefit you on your playthrough. You can have up to 3 attached to your case at once. The charms are really cool because they have a design that reflects the old models just like the old bottle caps, but this time they're actually useful, and you can swap them when necessary. You can get certain percentage of ammo dropped for various weapons, save money on merchant upgrades, and many more. There's a bunch of charms you can unlock in this game. The new addition was a nice touch, and target practice itself was really fun, and it's challenging as each level can have you there for a little while getting it down to the perfect score. Now let's get into the enemy AI and how much of a challenge it is in this game. The Ganados are definitely more aggressive, and that was the first thing I took note from the chainsaw demo. They do a good job at trying to surround Leon, and you have to be ready to parry and stab when they are down before they turn into parasites in front of you, which is another cool little feature that benefits the player. And I really enjoyed the villagers, the cultists, and the island enemy designs. Of course, with the AI, they still hit each other with friendly fire, they get caught in their own bear traps, and blow up with dynamite. Now, the boss designs are great because they don't really stray too far away from the original designs and keep the integrity of those fights, but switch it up a little bit on the players that are familiar with the game. And there's a few changes with some boss fights that I won't show here that actually worked better. And one thing that I definitely liked was that all the enemies felt familiar, but there was still a sense of the new stuff that they threw in there that added that challenge that wasn't there before. And that's why going into the first playthrough not seeing everything is a treat, because old and new fans will really enjoy how this game flows with each enemy and boss fight, and how all the chapters bring everything together, and it brings a good variety like in the original. This is of course where the franchise took itself away from the traditional zombie type enemies in 2005. The combat is obviously faster paced, it's set for action, there's more Ganados surrounding Leon on screen at one time. The combat and the melee is fixed to flow very well, and it feels nice chaining Ganados together with a knife or a melee attack. And that parry mechanic with the knife is one of my favorite additions, and it's such a great added feature for the defense and combat. So let's talk about Ashley Graham. Fans know that Resident Evil 4 is infamous for having the annoying Ashley Graham from the original that can easily get caught and killed or carried out by any Ganado at any time. Now this time around, there are more things for Ashley to do in the remake. She is a better character this time. She does help Leon and actually climbs down ladders. However, some old things stay the same with Ashley Graham. And sure, she is a better written character and does help from time to time in certain fight segments, and I do like her segment in this a lot better than the original. She can spread out in the field of combat, but sometimes she still gets in the way, and friendly fire can result in her immediate death. This is more frustrating on the harder modes without a doubt, as more things are moving quickly and it can get overwhelming fast. Sure, she doesn't have a health bar, she still gets knocked down pretty easily and can be taken away before you can notice. They do include lockers you can put Ashley in a few sections, but it's not used much in the remake. I do think Ashley Graham is portrayed better here, but it's just some of the annoying features of Ashley didn't really change much, and her voice screaming Leon over and over again, that alone on countless retries will make you just want to mute the game audio. And of course, within talking about the gameplay, I wanted to get into the visuals a bit. And just like I said when I first saw the gameplay, that the graphics and the visuals are amazing. They're very top-notch here. They're really pushing the RE engine, which really captures the 3 locations of this game in the best way they could have presented them. And seeing the castle, which is my favorite from the original, was just mind-blowing and amazing to explore on countless playthroughs. I played on my Xbox Series X and really enjoyed this thing in 4K once I played it off-stream, and I was able to really take in the visuals even more. While I really enjoyed the gore visuals in this game, and I did enjoy the dismemberment coming back, but I must say, I thought the deaths in the original game were way better. They just seemed more raw and uncut for that US release back in 2005. I can't wait to see how the RE engine continues to climb for the future of Capcom releases, because they did really knock it out of the park here with the visuals, and I did enjoy the gore coming back to the extent that it did. The story and characters. The story hits similar beats that the original did, but it does switch some stuff up, and the writing makes a lot more sense this time around with how it wraps around the characters. Leon feels the weight that Raccoon City left on his consciousness and how it changed him as a person while being forced into this position and still accepting what's thrown his way. This is more of a lived-in Leon, and he is way more ready for what he's about to be up against. And I really enjoyed how they handled Leon here, especially how he bounces off other characters. I thought Ashley Graham was also someone that I ended up liking more by the end of it, and I really liked Leon and Ashley's chemistry in the cutscenes. One of my favorite characters here that was done differently in an even better way was Luis Serra. They included him more in the game, and they really gave him connection to the lore of Resident Evil and developed his story further. Something I always wanted out of the original characters in Resident Evil 4, and Luis was one of them. All of the segments with him and Leon were very well done, and I like how both characters bounced off of each other with the dialogue. Ada Wong was also one of my favorite characters in the original game, and I do really like how they wrote her in the game, and it does fit her story in, and you can tell that there is a Separate Ways DLC that's looming over this game that is definitely going to drop at some point, so I can't wait to see that. I thought that all the villains like the Big Cheese, Salazar, Krauser, and Sadler all held up well, and there were more changes that were made to some of the sequences, and even some of the boss fights were redesigned a bit. But the main vibe and essence of these villains remained the same, and if anything, what they built around some of the new stuff worked for me, and it didn't hurt the integrity of the original story. Capcom continued to streamline the story with the recent remakes and bring in some different horror vibes just like in the original, and the engine was able to show different layers of gore, but also the layers of full-blown action with its approach, just like in the original, because this is where the franchise started to switch and went off and leaned heavy into the action. After it worked so well in the fourth game, they continued it from there on out. I think the story and style remaining the same is fine here because I thought it worked in the original. There will always be fans that prefer the different pace of something like Resident Evil 2 or 3 Remake, or something like the pace of Resident Evil 4, where it's a lot more punched up with action while having those horror elements sprinkled in that work very well. The elements they filled in and explained with certain character details and things that the files fill in are great, and some moments don't really leave you scratching your head like in the original when it comes to certain characters and what they're doing. There wasn't much cut from the overall story or the outcomes. Now, some of the rooms or other events they cut could appear in the Separate Ways DLC, so I don't want to jump completely into them cutting stuff. This game does feel complete for a telling of Resident Evil 4, and it did not suffer the cuts that Resident Evil 3 Remake had. The cheese is all here, and no, not that cheese, but the lines from Leon. They bring back that B-movie goodness that fans still wanted, and not a Leon that just seems serious all the time, but in my opinion, they did a good job on keeping a balanced Leon, even if some of the cheesy lines this time around are tuned up even more than the original, even more cheesy. Replay value and unlockables. One of the best parts of playing Resident Evil is the replay value and the unlockables. They are all packed in here. Several costumes to unlock along with different accessories, and some accessories even help you out in the main game. New Game Plus is here and it can carry over to the harder modes, and you can get Leon built up with every weapon and maxing out the stuff from the merchant. You can also grab more side missions or objectives that you missed the first time around. I really couldn't put this game down, just like the original. There is just a fun and addicting quality to this game, and I'm happy that they didn't take those elements out of the remake and make it stale. So many unlockables and different ranks that can be attained to get all the goodies, so it makes you get good and figure out the game in and out, which I love. As of the making of this video, the free DLC of the Mercenaries has dropped, and with playing all the characters and stages along with some of the new features they added, I can say I love this Mercenaries mode over the original. Everything just feels great with the new combat mechanics and taking on all those Ganados with the special Mayhem meter that each character has different abilities, and it helps out with crowds of enemies. The Mercenaries was very well done and so much fun. I can't wait to go back and play Mercenaries several times over, just like I did in the original game. I have enjoyed sinking so many hours into unlocking everything and doing all the challenges. Some of them I still need to finish up. I will definitely be caught up and ready for whenever they want to officially announce the Separate Ways DLC, so we can finally see more of Ada's side of things, and maybe we can get some more Mercenaries characters with some more maps. That would be really cool. The wrap-up. Wrapping all of this up, I must say, this is definitely one of my favorite Resident Evils, and I really couldn't put it down just like how I did with the original. They did what the director and producer, along with the team, set out to do. Keep the 2 years of development that it took for the final version of the original Resident Evil 4, and add 2 more years of development on that to make modern improvements, streamline the story, and they did it successfully with the beautiful RE engine backing up the visuals and creating a great vibe for the remake that stayed true to the folk horror vibes and the cult imagery that's plastered around the game. It gave us more of the characters that we wanted and tightened up sections of the game that just made the thing flow so well through every playthrough. It is the most polished Resident Evil to date, and I think that they will take this and apply it to the next mainline game and the next remake. The question that always comes up, though, is, Anthony, is this better than the original Resident Evil 4? And my answer is, well, I don't know. I still would like to spend more time with the remake, and I still love the original game. And the impact that it had with its changes can't really be recaptured all over again like 2005. I mean, how could it? The original broke new ground and was successful at it. This remake wanted to recapture that nostalgia and took the same game while adding details and redefined things that made sense and focused on improving those weaker areas, and Capcom was successful in doing that. I still like both versions of Resident Evil 4, and I think this is still one of the best remakes that Capcom has ever made. Older Resident Evil fans get to experience this masterpiece all over again, and some of the brand new Resident Evil fans, well, this will be their first time playing it, so they'll be able to indulge themselves in one of the best Resident Evil titles yet. So what are your thoughts on the Resident Evil 4 remake? Let your voices be heard in the comments down below, and I would love to hear from the community. Stay tuned for the in-depth podcast episode discussing spoilers and an in-depth discussion on this remake. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned as we continue down the road for Resident Evil 4 Remake.